My name is Tucker Miller. I'm an independent consultant from Mississippi Delta down around Drew, Sunflower, Tallahatchie County. And I've spoken at this thing for like 10 years, 12 years, I don't know. But I never know what kind of title they say. Well, you talk on cotton. I said, well, what do you want to talk about? I don't care. So I just give them a generic kind of title in there and we'll go with that. But I'm going to talk about two of the things that plagued me as a consultant. Maybe some other consultants are in here this past year that's really a pain in the rear. But that's what I'm going to try to talk about and ask for suggestions on what to do. But what we're going to talk about maybe is cotton diseases. Everybody knows about the seedling associated diseases. Bacterial blight's been a player in my area for the last several years. Potassium associated foliar diseases. Target spot, the main one. Talk about what we're going to do about that. Fungicide management alternatives, just regular crop management alternatives, how to manage a crop to maybe cut back on that, whether or not we're getting a benefit from foliar fungicides. And then we're going to go into the other problem we've had in the last couple of years is resistance with bollworm, mid-sized populations, and Bollgard II. So let's start here. What is that, a recorder?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I don't have a pointer, but I might can get this. This is, everybody knows what that is if you've seen bacterial blight. But along with that, in the same field, if you look closely, you've got a white worm egg on that dry tag and one on that bract. So this is a double whammy for us in my area. The bacterial blight, you know, there's things we can do about that. We'll talk about in a minute. Leaf foliar symptoms of bacterial blight. We see this. We hate to see this. We know it's going to, you know, possibly get worse depending on the weather. But that's what that looks like. Potash deficiency or some other type disease that Tom Allen doesn't know what is, or I don't know what is. But we have a lot of that. This is the one that's been a booger bear for us here in the last couple of years. Target leaf spot, and I took these pictures. You know, I'll have to give credit to a lot of other slides from Don Cook and Jeff Gore and Angus and all that bunch. But I did take this for myself because I saw so much of it. I said, well, I might take a picture of it and use it. There's another one, target leaf spot. If you look closely, you can see down on the ground where the leaves are defoliating. Then the stem spots and bract spots and all this, and I didn't get I tried to get my picture of my boll damage. You know, this thing will drop bolls on the ground, and you'll see those black spots all over those bolls. It's not a speckled boll like the old timers say. It's that spot burns all the way through there and rots a lot. I didn't put the picture that I had in there. But that's my field right there. A bunch of them. I had a bunch of them that looked like that. You squat down on your knees and you can see a rabbit 200 yards down the road. You know, so that's and if you look close, some of these all these old desiccated leaves, but you got green leaves and you got yellow leaves and you got some bolls on the ground. And if you look up in here, you kind of see either hard lock or boll rot or associated whatever that comes with all this. And so this is a big problem for us, you know. And we are, you know, we're in supposedly the low to medium range or whatever for this problem. I think I'm in the high in the high section somehow. They need to move that up. But anyway, you got a lot of other risk factors in this thing, and this is how we're going to try to manage it. You know, these farmers in my area, they love their irrigation systems. They love them, and they irrigate too much most of the time. But we're going to have to watch more of that, and then rainfall, especially if you irrigate in August, and then you get a rain, and you get a big shed, and all that exacerbates the problem. Nitrogen fertilization. We're putting on too much nitrogen, they tell us. You know, it's hard to get farmers to cut back to 80 or 90 units when they've been used to putting out 120, and they don't want to run out. Canopy closure. That's one thing that one of my thoughts about target spot is planting an open canopy variety They're none resistant to this stuff. Plant an open canopy variety, maybe even skip row. Don't plant it too thick, and maybe a variety selection. We can do that with bacterial blight. We've got some that are resistant to that. It really helps. So going forward, consultants are going to have to make a decision on what variety to plant. Whether it's bacterial blight resistant, which there's not many of them that they like to plant, and don't have any for target spot, and then we'll get on into the Bollgard II in a minute. But anyway, I got this slide from Tom Allen. Supposedly they were saying that the variety 1137 was maybe a little more resistant to bacterial blight than 499 was. So you can see all the fungicide applications that they put out twice, and seed cotton yields, and there was a difference. The 499 seemed to yield better. I don't know whether that's varietal or whether that was for the fungicides, but it's not much difference in the two, and with the non-treated and the treated. So does the fungicide pay off? $40 an acre if you spray it twice. I don't know whether it does or not. There's just some more yields and some more on that same test, some more fungicide applications and difference in lint yield from some of those. So it's all over the board. And this is what we found based on the regional data set and the information that came from a meeting. Tom Allen gave me this slide. A fungicide application to manage target spot of cotton may provide significant yield preservation 20% of the time. I had about 4 tests this year of my own. One of them had a 70-pound lint yield increase. It was 40-acre blocks. If you figure the cost on that, it just barely, or maybe didn't even pay for itself, So, what do we do? 80% of the time, a fungicide is not beneficial. So, how do you know whether you're going to go out there and start that first bloom or second bloom shot of a fungicide, not knowing if it's going to be bad or not knowing if you're going to get the weather in August, and then put the second shot out, and then it's hard to get my guys to spend $40 an acre, and the odds are 80%, it ain't going to work. So that's where we are. Now let's talk about the second problem that I had, or I think a lot of people have had, is bollworms and Bollgard II cotton. I don't know how many pictures I took of this all year. It was not good, and it's coming from, we got eggs all up and down the plant. Let's see if I can get this thing. There's one on a big leaf, there's one in a terminal, there's one on the inside, 2 of them on the inside of a dried bloom tag. So they're all over there. So we've had to change our methods of scouting these things and go from there. Here's just another picture, and that's one of my insect reports. So there's eggs all over. You find more down in there than you do in the terminal. Dried bloom tags, they're all over. I mean, you just go through there and you're amazed at how many you can find. There's 2, 3, multiples all in there. And you go through there pulling the dried bloom tags and you see how many eggs you got. And you know that tissue is dead. It's not expressing any BT protein, so you kind of get to worrying about it. Here's one of my bug reports. See Sunday. I'm out there working every day now trying to figure out what to do about these things. I don't know if you can see that date. That's 7/16. I got down here spray Tuesday, island, whatever the fields were. Besiege, acephate, and picks. We're trying to keep the picks on it, the besiege for the worms, acephate for plant bugs, and so we're putting out a pretty good $high shot. Look again. Here's what was that other day? The 16th. Here's 7/29. We're doing it again. So that's 2 shots. That's 2 shots of a diamide insecticide plus acephate for plant bugs. In Bollgard II cotton. So I got these slides from Dr. Gore. Mid-South BT overspray for Mississippi. Look at your variety or traits down here at the bottom. You got your non-BT. You can see how bad that was. Wide strike 3. A big help from adding that VIP gene, the 3rd gene. Bollgard II and twin lane. So you can see where the the sprayed is picking up 100 pounds here, 119 or 20 there, 209, almost 300 pounds in wide strike, and look at of course, the non-BT. Here's some evaluation of Bollgard III cotton in Mississippi, some yields. Bollgard II, Bollgard III. Look at the difference. Of course, your non-BT, you know what that is. Look, going from Bollgard II, 220 pounds, and Bollgard III, we're still getting some, and this is tremendous pressure. Dr. Gore told me, still picking up, 93 pounds from an overspray on Bollgard III. So that's going to be the question we're going to have to deal with going forward. Pyrethroid efficacy on BT cotton. This was back in 2000, but we know that percent mortality was only 43% when these eggs and worms are down in here, and it's a whole lot worse than that. It doesn't hardly work at all now, the pyrethroid. So we're strictly moving forward to the diamide chemistry on these Bollgard II escaped worms. Now this is what Angus and them told me we were going to do. Of course, I a lot of times do what they tell me to do, but sometimes I don't. Bollgard III, Y strike 3, twin leak plus, 4% worms, or 6 fruit damage of any kind. So, we've been on an egg threshold for a good bit of this time in Bollgard II. We've been on this egg threshold for Bollgard II, 20% eggs. And this is something I'm glad that my 2 bug reports that I showed had this time interval. I didn't know y'all were gonna put that in there, but don't retreat on eggs within 12 days if treated with a diamide. So give that diamide time to work. It may be a little less concentrated down in the bottom of the plant, but don't spray it a week later. They're telling us to give it. Is that right, Angus? Give it 12 days before you do the second application. But anyway, if treatment is needed within 12 days, go back to an orthene and pyrethroid.
What rate of the tank?
Well, I don't want to steal all Tucker's thunder, because it's a longer story we'll talk about after. We've been using 14 and 7.
Yeah.
But there's some evidence now that we might need in some situations bump it to 20 and 10.
That's what we're doing. Uh-oh. Am I done?
You're done.
Okay, I'm done. So,
That was the last slide.
that was the last slide. I thought it was, but
So 20 and 10 of what? What do you?
20 ounces of Prevathon, 10 ounces of Beseech, which is basically the same amount of Prevathon.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go into this thing and not do an egg threshold until we see something different. But when some of the data is showing us 100 pounds of an overspray on BT3, we kind of are concerned. We're also concerned about the VIP protein being put into corn, because I think corn is what's caused this problem for us in Bollgard II. Exposing those worms in the corn to the 2 proteins that we've had, and then getting them off into the cotton, and then it's not working. So now the VIP is going into corn, and so that could be I'm not going to say it will be a problem 2 or 3 years down the line probably, but anyway, we've got to hang on for a couple more years, and hopefully we can do something. The target spot, I don't know what to do about that other than just management practices. Fix it. Don't plant it too thick. Don't put up too much fertilizer. Don't water it too much. All that kind of things is hard to get farmers not to do, and hope for the best on the target spot. And so, any questions?
Your potash deficiency picture you had a while ago, are you seeing any difference in the newer varieties showing up more potash deficiency?
I think the early season varieties we are, but and Dr. Evilhack can probably, the full season varieties like 1646. Yeah.
When we were really early, about 20 years ago, the fast fruiting, early maturing varieties tend to be potassium deficient because they can't take up enough potassium over a short period of time. There's only so much they can take up. So
Yeah.
if you take that same thing and stretch it over an extra month, that deficiency doesn't show up as bad. But a lot of it depends on the root system too. So if you've got a nematode problem, and it's damaging your root systems, and anything that affects nutrient uptake will make that disease, the nutrient deficiency worse.
I would totally agree.
We're just seeing it more prevalent in some of the newer varieties that we're planting. in
Well,
North
probably,
Alabama.
it depends on how early they're maturing and the developmental root system. In some of your soils, you've got some pretty shallow soils there, limited root system, it's gonna be worse.
Any more questions? Yes,
I'm just
sir.
gonna put in a shameless plug for our bollworm management panel this afternoon, which you're on, because we'll go into a lot more detail.
Yeah. I'll have all the experts with me then, so I can kind of relax.
Did you have to spray any, Bollgard III?
No, I did not. I had a little bit of Bollgard III cotton in the NPE plots, Delta Pine, and some in List White Strike 3, and there was a noticeable difference in the worm control, for sure. You could see it to the rope. So it's gonna work, and we just gotta learn how to manage it and not mess it up. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Miller. We're gonna